Hey guys, what's up? It's Ripe again. In today's video, my entitled neighbors damaged my property, slashed my tires and trespassed. They claim I gave them permission to do all of this. Here is what happened. Subscribe to Ripe on YouTube and hit the bell to turn on notifications. And the first one starts like this. Entitled neighbors can really ruin even the nicest neighborhood. My father was well off, so we lived in a pretty nice neighborhood. My father did a lot of investing, and that is mainly what paid for our house. I don't consider myself to be a materialistic person of any sort, but damn, it's nice to live in a big house with a big pool. Especially in the area I live in, where it can get to almost 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, we are a Hispanic family, and when we bought this house, there was a pretty low Hispanic population in the city. Because of this, there were some times where we got treated differently than everyone else. We did have some genuinely nice neighbors, but there were also several neighbors who were snobby, entitled idiots. I remember when we first moved in, the lady across the street even made a remark about, "How can a family like them afford to live here?" We did our best to brush them off most of the time, but still, it can be pretty annoying. We are hardworking people just like everyone else. Anyways, the house sat vacant for a while before we bought it, I think like a year. Like I said, it was a pretty upscale neighborhood to live in, so I'm assuming that it was out of most people's price range. At the time this happened, I was only 19 and in university. I did not have a car at that moment, so sometimes after school, my dad would still pick me up and I would head home. I was pretty close with my entire immediate family, so a lot of times we would grill outside and hang out by the pools for hours. This one particular day, which was the plan, my sister was even leaving work early to come over. Except we had no idea that afternoon would be the start of a long neighborly feud. See, my dad and I pulled up and there were several people in our pool who we did not recognize. It turns out that they are neighbors from down the street, but they were extremely entitled neighbors. My dad immediately gets defensive and asks them who the F they are. "Guy, I'm the owner's friend. He gave me permission to use his pool." "Who the F are you? You are trespassing on my friend's property right now." My dad pulls out his keys from his pocket and says, "That is funny, because I'm the owner and I have no idea who the hell you are. Get off my property before I call the police." The guy, who I am assuming is his girlfriend, then gets out of the pool but starts absolutely freaking out. He starts yelling racial slurs at my father and me, saying that we need to go back to Mexico and that there is no way we actually live in this neighborhood. He even told me I looked like a pool cleaning boy. Of course, this really upset me, and I think my dad would have probably started a physical fight, but the guy and his girlfriend were already taking off. I think it's important to note that the girlfriend was pretty quiet too, so maybe she knew they got in trouble or she was embarrassed. Either way, my dad stepped up security measures after that on the house. He actually called 911 on the neighbors and tried to get them for trespassing, but unfortunately our security cameras could not prove that it was them, so they basically got away with a slap on the wrist and a verbal warning from the police. We thought that this would be the end of it because, you know, we made it clear that we were the owners and that they were not welcome here. My dad did take precautionary measures though and got new locks for our gate, several more security cameras that would send notifications to our phones if it detected motion. Like I said, we thought that was the end of the weird interaction and we would not be seeing those people anymore, anytime soon. Everything was pretty quiet for a while as well after that. The security cameras did not catch anything, our house alarm never went off, everything seemed peaceful and quiet. Until my mom got up and ready for work one day, only to find that her car tires had been slashed. My mom called my dad, absolutely freaking out and upset. Which is of course completely understandable. My dad said right away that he bets it was the neighbor who got caught in our pool before. Unfortunately though, my mom's car was just outside of the security camera, so when we checked the footage we could not see anything. The lock was also still on the gate, so they probably jumped the fence or something like that. Well, my dad is a smart man, and while my mom was getting her tires fixed at the shop, we did have to call a tow truck, not fun at all, my dad let my mom borrow his car. He told her to park it in a different spot so that it was outside the gate, but still in the direct view in front of one of our security cameras. Well, I did not think anything would happen as fast as it did, but boy, these people sure made it easy for us to get rid of them. A few days later, my dad got a notification that there was motion on the security camera that was pointing towards my dad's car. When he went to check, there was the entitled neighbors throwing eggs at my dad's car and scratching the hood of it. Of course, my dad immediately drove home with his friend, but by that time they were already gone. He was pissed. We had barely any contact with these people, barely knew them. They were doing all of this because we did not like them trespassing and using our pool. Well, my dad called the police and filed a report right away. And of course, we were able to prove the police with the security footage, and when we were reviewing the footage, we actually caught them hopping the fence the first time. We did not think to check that specific security camera because it was in an odd corner of the yard, but we ended up having a solid case. The guy ended up getting arrested and his girlfriend was arrested as an accessory to the crimes. They obviously ended up having to move out because they could not afford their mortgage after all of the legal fees were being paid. And yeah, Ripe Stars, I cannot even imagine having such entitled neighbors next to me. How can you even have the audacity to swim in someone else's pool, aka trespass on their property, and then claim that you know the owner when you get confronted? Either way, let's continue to the next one. The next one is titled, Awful Insurance Company Gets What They Deserve. And Ripe Stars, this one is a really long story, so please watch until the end to see the ending. I worked at an awful insurance company years ago and can honestly say it was the worst experience of my life. I have a couple of stories of doing what I could to get back at management though. I worked in service and we were supposed to use a program that automatically estimated how many miles a person drove per year. The catch though is this program was always glitched and was always down, so you could not use it. One day I had a call that was being monitored by a supervisor and I needed to estimate mileage. Of course, the program itself was down and unusable, so I put in an estimate for numbers that were typical of the area. I got graded an F for the call, or whatever the metrics were. It's been a while, so I don't remember the exact details. I had my direct supervisor talk to me about the call with the whole "what can we do to avoid this in the future?" lecture. I told him the score was BS and needed to be changed immediately since the app was down and completely unusable. He said there was not anything he could do and that the F would stand. Whatever, no big deal. I knew it was typical company BS, so I forgot about it and moved on. Until my former supervisor called to ream me out. This monster had recently been transferred out of state and was no longer my boss, but for some reason took it upon herself to call me anyways and explode on me about how it was unacceptable to not be using the mileage estimation program and how I would not be working there much longer if I did not shape up. At this point I had enough of the company and did not care anymore. I explained how the app was literally down and not a single person could use it and how the score on my call was BS and needed to be changed immediately. She did not care for silly things like common sense and demanded that I send her an action plan detailing how I would ensure this would never happen again. Cue the malicious compliance. I knew I had received an F on the call because the program I was supposed to use was glitched, down and unusable. Only management could fix that, so my action plan was very simple. Each and every morning I would send my supervisor an email asking her what she was doing to ensure the glitches in the app were fixed and it never crashed again. Of course, my action plan stated that since she personally took time out of her busy schedule to contact me, I understood how immensely important this was. So I would be typing up this action plan and sending it to her daily until the program was fixed. For the next month, I would clock in, put my phone on hold so that I couldn't take incoming calls, and spend the next 10 to 15 minutes typing the action plan fresh and sending it to her. A second part of my action plan said something along the lines of this. Former supervisor has made it abundantly clear how important communication on this issue is. Therefore, I will send no less than 5 follow-through emails each day until said issue is resolved. So 5 times a day I would put my phone so I could not receive incoming calls and spend 5 to 10 minutes typing the email fresh and sending it to her. She responded multiple times telling me to stop, but I simply responded, per our previous talk, I understand how important this is to the company, and per your previous request to recreate an action plan, I will continue to do this until the program is fixed. After all, I want to ensure that I'm always using the required programs and never get graded an F in a call again. I kept this up for my last month with the company, during which I turned into Peter Gibbons from Office Space and completely and totally stopped caring about everything. Part 2 of the story. At the end of my previous story I mentioned that I went full Peter Gibbons from Office Space on Geico, and Geico I suppose is the company OP works for. I don't think you guys realize just how accurate of a description this is. Some background: Geico is a terrible company to work for. They micromanage you to the extreme, set impossible expectations. I was graded an F on a call once because I sneezed, seriously. And you only have 4 graded calls a month, and this is what determines your ranking as an employee, and expect you to put up with the scum of the earth. I once kept a week-long tally of how many times customers cussed me out every day. I did the math and realized I averaged being cussed out about 15 times a day. Of course, if you work for Geico, this is something you are all aware of. I worked for this hellhole at the height of the recession. I sat at a computer all day answering phones and then went home and filled out applications until 9:30 to 10 at night with nothing to show for it for over a year. I'm not the type of guy who gets depressed or lets things get me down, but working at this hellhole ruined my life so severely that I started puking every morning before going into work. I had to call my mom as a grown-ass adult on my way to work most mornings and ask her to convince me not to turn around and go home. Something about me: I never call out of work. I will go into work feeling so sick that I feel like I'm going to die, but I don't call out. And by the way, Ripe Stars, in my opinion, that's definitely not a healthy work ethic. I am a bit of a workaholic myself, but I would still put my health first before pleasing some kind of douchebag boss. Let me know what you think about this in the comments. Either way, let's continue. Except at Geico. I hated the job so much and was done being treated like dirt, done with the insane micromanagement, moronic managers, computer programs that crashed every other minute, and customers who were calling directly from Satan's butthole. I was finishing my master's in teaching credential program at the time and realized that after a year of looking for another job, my student teaching internship was 2 months away, so I just stopped caring. Don't get me wrong, I understand the average customer did nothing wrong to me, and I always treated them right, but if somebody cussed me out, I hung up on them. If somebody gave me an attitude, I would put them on hold for 10 minutes while I went to grab a coffee. I purposely stopped following the corporate script and never upsold anything ever. Then I realized that the morning nausea and vomiting I had been experiencing would go away if I simply didn't go into work. I had plenty of sick time saved up and would just call out if I felt like it. If I didn't feel like it, I would just not show up. I ran out of sick time pretty quickly doing this. My logic was simple, and I'll explain that in a bit. One day I had it scheduled to miss the first half of the day to attend a mandatory meeting in regards to setting up my student teaching internship. I told my supervisor I would be in around 1 or so, depending on how long things took. The day was awesome and I was feeling super enthusiastic about this new chapter in my life until I started driving north to go to work. Then that Geico-y feeling of misery hit me, but only for a minute. I called my wife and told her I was hungry. We should get pancakes, so we did. We took our time eating. I had a cup of coffee. Then another, and she asked me if I had to go to work. I said yep, and asked for a third refill. She asked if I was planning on going in, to which I responded nope. She asked me if I had called to tell anyone, and I said nope, and that was that. I took the rest of the day off and loved every minute of it. My supervisor called at least 3 times and I hit the ignore button every time. He left 3 messages about how my behavior was unacceptable too. I deleted all of them. The next day I woke up feeling a bit better, only to have that nausea feeling hit me the second I realized I had to go to work. So I took my time getting ready, waited 45 minutes or so for traffic to clear, and slowly made my way into the office. The boss was waiting for me, and as soon as I clocked in, he asked me to meet him in a side office. We sat making small talk for a couple of minutes until a higher-up came in. Not his boss, but his boss's boss, that would make him my boss's boss. Really serious stuff. The two of them started tag teaming me, telling me how my behavior was unacceptable, how I should be ashamed of myself, how I needed to be a team player, that I was on thin ice, and blah blah blah. I waited patiently until they were done, and no kidding you, the first thing I said was, "You guys done?" Okay, good, because now it's my turn. Here's the thing, I hate this job. This job sucks, it's the worst thing that's ever happened to me. And if the economy was not as awful as it was, I would have been out of this hellhole a long time ago. But the economy sucks, almost as bad as this crap job, and I don't have a choice but to work here. It's been years since this happened, so that's not a verbatim quote, but it's pretty damn close to what was said. I continued, "Here's the thing, you have nothing on me. When I say I don't give a damn, I need you to understand exactly what I mean. I don't give a damn about this job. I have my student teaching internship in 2 months, and I'll not only be done with this job, I'll be done with the BS customer service industry forever. But here's the thing, I tried finding another job, but there is not any other work out there. So yeah, I'm stuck here, and you're stuck with me. But here is how I see things. You can fire me now, 2 months before I quit, and that unpaid internship will turn into a fully paid internship thanks to unemployment benefits. I will have corporate sponsorship of my student teaching. If you don't fire me, I will tell you what's going to happen. I don't give a damn about this job. I hate it, and I'm not going to follow your BS micromanagement. Use your garbage corporate script or upsell anything. If I don't feel like coming into work, I won't. If I feel like coming in a little late, I will. I will still do right by the customers because they didn't do anything wrong. You can trust me on that. I won't screw over innocent policyholders. But this company can go suck a big one. I then sat back like Peter Gibbons and said, "Balls in your court, guys. I gotta tell you, I'll support you either way on this." Honest to God, this is exactly how it went down. Just about everything was paraphrased, but more or less accurate to what happened, with the exception of that final line, "I will support you either way on this." That is a verbatim quote and line I will always look back on with pride. My boss and my boss's boss just looked at each other and had absolutely no idea what to do. Eventually, my boss's boss looked at me and said, "Well, I have to say, usually people are not that honest. I appreciate you being so direct and honest with me. I guess you can go back to work now." So I did. Of course, being the little piece of work I am, I shook his hand before I left and said that it was nice meeting him. I spent the next month or so more or less doing what I wanted to do at the company. I still treated customers who deserved it with respect, except for the very last one, but that's another amazing story. But now I did not use the corporate script, upsell anything that was not relevant to the customer, or worry about any of the moronic scores or quotas. I kept to our bargain and stayed home on days that I felt like staying home, and usually rolled in 30 to 45 minutes late to avoid rush hour traffic. Eventually, my last day came and I did a final no call, no show, which was perhaps the best one ever. I ignored all 5 of my boss's messages, took the weekend off and started student teaching the next Monday. I am now on my 8th or 9th year teaching, and there has never been a time when I did not look back at the end of my tenure at Geico with anything other than pride. And here, ripe stars, I gotta say, I did not hate my last job as much as OP, but I can fully understand him. Doing a job that you hate is absolutely terrifying, honestly, and that's why I'm so happy to be doing YouTube full time now. I realize how fortunate I am, but I also realize how even more fortunate I am to have you as my loyal viewers. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.